like I was saying before, it's that vasodilation. That's what gives you that effect, right? Why caffeine is something that we crave. The feelings that we get from it is what it does to our vascular system. So it rushes, frees blood and rushes blood to your brain, right? So that you literally have more mental clarity.
If health is a state of mental, physical, spiritual, and social well-being, a state in which the body is functioning at 100% and not merely the absence of disease, then why is it that black people are the least healthy race on the planet?
Welcome to Black Health by Evoke, a podcast where we discuss the unfair access to care, health inequality, and the cultural and generational impact of poor health in our communities.
It's time for us to take responsibility for our own health. Meet Dr. E, Dr. T, and myself, Dr. V. We want black people to be encouraged and empowered, for our people are perishing for lack of knowledge. It's time for black health to thrive, not just survive. Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's going on?
What's going on, Doc? What's going on, doctors?
Feeling great,
man.
Feeling good,
Feeling amazing, actually, man. I just waking up every morning, man, and knowing you got breath in your body, man. You got to understand that you're blessed. You're so blessed, and one of the most blessed things we have is our health, man. Our health.
It's our most valuable commodity, man. It's the most valuable thing,
man,
we have, because nothing else can exist in your world if you don't have your health.
It's the easiest thing to overlook as well, too, man, because we get so caught up, so wrapped up in life and the things that we see, the things that we know are bad, but you don't think about it at the moment, man. So I think it's probably one of the most overlooked things in our lives. It's crazy.
It is, man, because we get wrapped up in our daily lives and our stresses and our successes, and we get wrapped up in all these things, and we tend to overlook the thing that's making all that possible.
Yeah.
And man, it's so funny, man. It just really going into today, man. It seems like oftentimes society is almost on a state of burnout. I mean, everybody's moving and going, and they're trying to juggle 3 and 6 things, and they need a boost. They need a kick, and they try to find all these different things, and as far as to really, really help them to kind of propel, kind of get ahead, or even just be awake. And
Right.
and one of those things is caffeine. Caffeine today. Ooh. Been getting a lot of inquiries about it, and caffeine historically has come through some ranks as far as weight loss and energy and beauty products. It's in relation to your health, as far as having good health, maintaining good health, fellas. I want to key on in on what do you think? Is coffee good? Is coffee bad? Is coffee beneficial?
Yes,
I think it's all three.
Yeah, what'd you say?
Yes.
Did you? Yeah, did you say all three? I think all three. Yeah,
Dr. Everett face said yes. He didn't say nothing. He just said yes. Yeah.
Right. The answer is yes.
I want to know that expression, Dr. Everett. Why you just lit up, man? I mean, you got some jewels.
I'm not a big caffeine guy, not a huge caffeine guy, but it's one of those things where there's been all this research, there's been all these studies about caffeine. They really dig into it, and they can go one direction or another. And that's the thing that makes caffeine so kind of controversial. Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? How much should you have? What ages should you consume it? Right? Under what conditions? All of these things, right? And when we really look at it, the answer is it varies. It really varies. Is I think what we've come to, but I think it's important. It is some important things to understand about caffeine, and that's what we're talking about today.
Now, Dr. Tipler, I know you're I guess what they call a gourmet coffee drinker.
Right.
You only drink the sweetest of coffees. So the sweetest of the coffee beans. So I know you got some great information on coffee and its benefits, and
even with the group.
Hey, if you call Folgers gourmet, okay. No, I'm just playing.
Oh
I'm
my
just
god.
playing, man.
Oh my god, man. No, but
We sorry for this.
but
Right, right. No, but yeah, man, I consume. I wouldn't say that I'm a coffee connoisseur.
okay.
But usually in the mornings, man, I do have probably a cup of coffee. So when it comes to that question you asked, whether or not coffee is good, bad, or the other thing that you have said, I agree with what Dr. Everett said. I think, there has been a lot of research behind, the benefits of coffee and the bad effects of coffee. And, really, man, just like anything else, I think it comes down to moderation. And anything outside of moderation, then you get into those danger zones. So,
Hmm.
like for me, like I said, I probably drink a cup of coffee a day. Usually in the mornings, out the door, I have a cup of coffee with me, but I never really finish that coffee. I just kind of drink it on my trip into the office or whatnot. But there's benefits and then there's pitfalls to caffeine. And I look at it like this, man. If you are someone that has a really high addictive personality, meaning that
Hmm.
certain things that you do, certain things that you may take, whether it be alcohol, whether it be drugs, a certain type of food, working out, it can be good things as well. If you have a very addictive personality and you're a coffee drinker, it's something that can easily be addictive, I think, as well. So when you talk about those people drinking 5 and 6, I hear people talk about, oh, I didn't have me 6 cups of coffee a day. That's probably
Yeah,
not that healthy.
probably not a
It's
good idea.
probably causing them more harm. Not a good idea, and they really don't realize it.
Hmm.
So I'm interested. So we talking about the good coffee. So we talking about the caffeine of our generation. I know the
Okay.
older generation has their caffeine fix, and the younger generation. I look at some of these commercials, and I see the Mountain Dew, and they take the Mountain Dew, and I think it's like 20 cups of coffee in that thing, man. Right? And what are some of the different the different caffeine types? Because now our younger generation is drinking caffeine and utilizing it.
Energy
So
drinks.
Hmm.
and then there's this new one called pre-workout. And I know Dr. Everett, as far as just with really dabbling with the gym, with the gym and trying new things, you all over the new technology and caffeine working out and what the youth uses caffeine. Well, what do you think about that?
A lot of people point to pre workouts for some issues, right? When someone
Hmm.
has an issue, particularly things like with the heart and stuff like that, and they're someone who works out, stuff like one of the things that they'll point to is, well, was that person taking a pre workout? And the reason that
Right.
question is asked, I think it can be overblamed, but I think the reason that question is asked is because pre workouts do have high amounts of caffeine, especially the ones that are not naturally sourced, tend to
Hmm.
have a lot of caffeine in it, because there are other things that give you that vasodilation. There are other things besides caffeine that can give you that vasodilation that people are looking for when they're doing things like working out. But the more standard brands or the more popular brands, it's just an intense amount of caffeine, and that can be unsafe if not used properly. And
Okay.
that's the issue, is that sometimes people won't use them properly. Sometimes that person may not even know that their bodies can't handle that load, especially on that particular day. And
Right.
you can run into some issues when you're using things like pre-workout. So it is important to understand your body, understand how to use them, understand when to use them, the amounts. All of those things are really, really important when you're using something like a pre-workout, and that there are alternatives. There aren't just the ones that are just loaded with caffeine. Like I said, there are some that are naturally sourced with some other things that really can give you that vasodilation, that are more natural and more safe for you.
Yeah.
You know what are some healthy sources of caffeine? If you all both but what are some healthy sources of caffeine that some of our listeners can utilize as far as for boosts that are hard to overindulge in and that have the health benefit?
Coffee.
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
I mean,
Yep.
so the reason I say that, so when you think about just uh, talking about caffeine in general, usually, man, if you know from coffee to the sodas to energy drinks, there are different amounts of caffeine in each one of those. But when you start to talking about healthy amounts, I think we would all agree that if you're getting caffeine, you're drinking sodas, let's say sodas, for the
Yeah.
purpose of the caffeine rush that you get. That's more detrimental to your health overall than drinking maybe a cup of coffee. And the reason I say that is because the high amounts of sugar that's also included in the soda. So,
Hmm.
for instance, let's take 400. If we take a certain amount of coffee, usually if you stay within 4 cups of coffee a day, that's pretty healthy. It's not going to cause those side effects like headaches and then problems with sleeping, dehydration, um, irritability, tremors. There's a few different symptoms, side effects that comes from the overconsumption of caffeine. So when you look at it, 4 cups of coffee a day, that's the kind of the safe zone. The same amount of caffeine that's in 4 cups of coffee, you would get in like 10 sodas or 2 high-powered energy drinks. So now think of
Hmm.
somebody that's drinking Coca-Cola or the Pepsis, and they're drinking 6 to 10 of those, 10 of those a day. It's not necessarily the caffeine that's going to cause a major issue. It's really going to be the sugar content in those sodas. So I think, like you were saying, Dr. Vault, the sources of where we get that caffeine from is really the main thing that you should look at, and then just that, again, the moderation of it is most important. So I would say coffee, because that's really the only thing that I would, when it comes to caffeine, that's the only source that I would get it from.
Yeah.
and,
Um,
and and to our listeners, because you're hearing us say a lot of coffee, and because Dr. Everett is going to give us, I mean, I hope you're going to give us a healthy source. But to our listeners, coffee is an amazing source of caffeine, and oftentimes we hear where if you're drinking your coffee black, what it does is it leaches, it doesn't allow the body to absorb calcium. What you do to counteract that is putting a milk or a milk byproduct, if you have any allergies to it, in your coffee, and it counteracts that interaction there, and it restores the benefit as far as in utilizing caffeine with the coffee. So thanks Doc, man. Dr. Everett, what do you think, man, is like a healthy form of caffeine, as far as that's hard to overindulge in, and it has a
Well,
tremendous benefit.
it's that like I was saying before, it's that vasodilation. That's what gives you
Hmm.
that effect, right? Why caffeine is something that we crave. The feelings that we get from it is what it does to our vascular system. So it rushes, frees blood and rushes blood to your brain, right? So that you literally have more mental clarity. Your
Mm.
vision literally gets better, right? Your body temperature literally goes up a little bit. All those
Mm.
things happen when your body vasodilates, and caffeine can do that very well. But there are some other natural, because caffeine is natural. Let's not like Dr. Tipler was saying, caffeine is natural, right? What we're talking about is an overindulgence or overusing something that's natural. You can die from drinking too much water. So you overindulging in these natural things is the issue. So it's not caffeine itself. Not to say, the point is not that caffeine is bad. The point is that
Hmm.
overusing caffeine is bad. So there are alternative sources or other sources that you can get, that same effect from, like vitamin B. We know that's a really really
Mm.
good one. One I like is maca,
Okay.
which is becoming more popular. Maca is found in it's in a mixture of a lot of things, a lot of blends that are that people are using for better health these days. A more direct one is ginseng. That's a good one.
Mm.
It's popular for a couple of things in particular, but ginseng works very very well for that vasodilation, and you get that
Hmm.
same effect. So those are
Hmm.
three that I
Does
would really
vasodilation
point to.
help with the oxygen? That helps with the oxygen, right?
Helps with the oxygen. It helps with the flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, and it sounds also, from the angles that Dr. Everett and I are coming, like, um, what are the reasons why people drink coffee? Because I think that, or not coffee, but the caffeine. Why do people seek caffeine? So I think what Dr. Everett is. If I'm wrong, correct me. But it's more so a person that is looking to go to the gym, they're looking to get that extra, couple of
Mm-hmm.
different pushes or exercises in during the routine to get the maximum. That's one of the reasons why they may utilize caffeine sources. Some people that are fatigued, that already have issues,
Mm-hmm.
issues of fatigue, issues of, just a low energy state, and just kind of need a pick me up in the
Mm-hmm.
mornings when they're getting ready for work. I think that's the other reason why people turn to caffeine, which is why some of those sources that Dr. Everett just talked about would probably be better options. Because I think from that standpoint, when we're choosing to utilize caffeine, because man, I'm just sluggish in the morning, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, so I need to pick me up, I need some caffeine to kind of get me going. I think those are the things that can kind of lead to that overindulgence or that overabundance, overutilization of caffeine, that can then start to have those detrimental effects to our bodies and to our health.
We've been talking about how amazing the caffeine is, and we got a few facts because we want to get both sides of the fence. But we want to talk about some of the things that can be as far as how caffeine can be detrimental. Because as Dr. Everett mentioned earlier, it's about balance, right? It's about making sure that we have the proper amount. We're not doing too much, because if it is natural, right? Okay, it can have its benefit. So overindulgence or some of the side effects of utilizing maybe too much caffeine, or even not even your body not responding to it properly. Fellas, what are some of the things that we look at as it being detrimental if improperly used?
I think some of those things that to keep in mind is how too much caffeine can affect your sleep.
Hmm.
That's really, really important.
Hmm.
Caffeine does its job. So for those people who use too much or are very sensitive to caffeine, it can really affect the quality of your rest. So that's an area. So then you get into a cycle, right? So it affects the quality of your rest. Now you sluggish the next day, you need caffeine, but because you drink too much caffeine, you can't sleep very good at night, and then you ain't sleep very good at night, so you need more caffeine the next day. So then you get into a cycle,
Yeah.
and breaking that cycle can be difficult because caffeine, like many, 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 many substances, can be difficult to break because mostly of how you feel when you are not drinking caffeine. If you are, someone who drinks a lot of it, who
Hmm.
consumes a lot of it.
Hmm.
So sleep is definitely one of those things.
Definitely. I think one of the other things that to kind of throw into that with that sleep is, I think I mentioned it before, is the dehydration that comes with it.
Hmm.
Because normally when you can also look at caffeine, it's almost like a diuretic as well. So it can cause a person to urinate more frequently, where they can't, where they're constantly running to the restroom. And in those cases, if you're someone that's not drinking a lot of water behind the amounts of caffeine that you're taking in, it leads to faster dehydration. So if you're dehydrated, now we're talking about a whole nother list of
Hmm.
issues that ends up developing due to the state of dehydration in the body.
Yep.
And
Uh, that-
and go ahead, Doc.
no, go ahead.
Okay, and really just with closing things out, we want to hear from our listeners out there, but something that's big is we want to make sure that we're touching things that are important and valuable to you, and something that's in our environment everywhere, and we want to make sure you have information about it. You can make wise choices about it, because it's not like Dr. Evan and Dr. Tipler was saying. It's not about what it is; it's how to properly use it to benefit your health.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
those are the
think,
things that are important about a lot of
yeah.
these things is that we talk about. It is about how you use them and why you use them, and like Dr. Tipler was talking about, being dependent on on caffeine can be the issue as opposed to using it properly, right? Using it properly, because again, caffeine is natural. I know it has a lot of stigma, but caffeine is a natural substance, and when you use any natural substance the proper way, you can get a lot of benefit from
And it make you feel so good.
One thing to
that's
add
okay.
to, man, I think for those that utilize caffeine for the energy, to get that perk, to get that pick me up, it's being responsible. If you're going to get it from, if it's the energy drinks or the coffee and or the sodas, I would think out of that group, eliminate soda. Eliminate the soda pops or pop or whatever, the colas, whatever you want to call it. Eliminate that source of caffeine from your diet, because that in no way is going to be beneficial for your health overall anyway.
In a lot of different ways.
And a lot of different ways. So, other than the sources like Dr. Everett had mentioned, like B12 is a wonderful source. And I think in our practice, a lot, I always, when I talk to women specifically and they talk about the fatigue and the tiredness that they have, the one thing that I always recommend to them is B12. So outside of caffeine, for women that are listening, if you find yourself that you need that coffee in the morning because you're tired, you're fatigued, or you're drinking those sodas and energy drinks throughout the day, I would think maybe a supplement of B12 would probably benefit you a lot better than just turning to the caffeine and trying to get that quick pick me up. Your body really needs something that's a little more healthier, a lot more sustainable, that you can't overuse and cause side effects to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely thank you, everybody. Please, as we giving this information is definitely for the listeners. We please share with family members and friends. Please like our page on YouTube, because we want to make sure that we're impacting your lives so our future generations can truly be more blessed and more healthy. Thank you for listening, and see you on the next one.
Subscribe and share.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Black Health by Evoke.
He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything.
You can find us at www.evokingblackhealth.com or all social media platforms at Evoking Black Health.